this. Donald Trump, in his speech last night, he revealed he's got a bombshell coming next week on Hillary's dealings with her foundation. Roll that tape, please.
Hillary Clinton turned the State Department into a private hedge fund. The Russians, the Saudis, the Chinese all gave money to Bill and Hillary and got favorable treatment in return. It's a sad day in America when foreign governments with deep pockets have more influence in our own country than our great citizens.
All right, Judge, that's a straightforward statement of conflict of interest involving the Clinton Foundation, and you say what?
Most people have probably forgotten that there are two criminal FBI investigations of Mrs. Clinton. The secret server in her house, the email scandal, which we talk about all the time because it involves the failure to protect, the alleged failure to protect national security secrets, and the one Donald Trump mentioned, which is actually a team of FBI agents looking at allegations of public corruption. If I may amplify what Donald Trump said, and I would refine it slightly, I wouldn't call it a hedge fund, I'd call it a slush fund, which obviously is worse. The allegations are that she exercised the sovereign power of the Secretary of State given to her under the statutes so as to benefit her and her husband's pocketbook by doing favors for foreign governments and foreign countries and then receiving from those persons and countries substantial, I'm talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in contributions to the Clinton Foundation slush fund.
Now, that's not necessarily illegal, but it is highly political, isn't it? That's the point.
It is illegal if her decisions as Secretary of State were influenced by her knowledge or the high probability of her knowledge that the contribution would be coming.
Is that what the FBI is looking at?
Yes, that's exactly what the FBI is looking at. Look, there are some extreme, I'll give you the most extreme example, involves her husband's friend, Frank Giustra, G-I-U-S-T-R-A, a Canadian, who asked Mrs. Clinton as a foreigner for permission to own shares in a uranium mine in Utah. Secretary of State has the permission. She granted the permission. He sold 80% of his shares to Vladimir Putin. The Russians now own this uranium mine in Utah. He then gave $145 million from the proceeds to the Clinton Foundation. Now, you're raising your eyebrows. Anybody's eyebrows would be raised listening to this. Admittedly, I've given you one of the more extreme examples of this. There are many others. This is really perhaps the most incendiary of them.
It certainly is. $145 million goes into the Clinton Global Initiative or the Clinton Fund, whichever the correct name is.
Correct.
And part of that money came out of the proceeds of the sale of a uranium mine in America to Vladimir Putin.
Right. Now, again, not to Putin himself, but to a sovereign entity owned by the Russian government. Absolutely.
Well, it's all the same thing, actually.
In that case, it is, yes. So how can she possibly explain that or justify that kind of judgment? So Trump's argument is this is the mentality that is that is putting herself out for the White House. Do you want this same corrupt mentality as president that we had as Secretary of State?
And that is a totally separate line of investigation and charges from anything to do with email.
A different team of assistant U.S. attorneys and a different team of FBI agents. Because the FBI, like any major organization, is divided by specialty. So they have a team that investigates public corruption, corruption of public officials. They have a team that investigates breaches of national security.
Now,
just two teams investigating
Would
her.
this team that's looking at the foundation have access to emails and other written records of the transaction with Mr. Giustra?
Yes.
They would?
Yes, absolutely.
They've subpoenaed this? They've demanded it?
I do not know if they have subpoenaed it. In order to subpoena it, a grand jury must be summoned. Now, if a grand jury is sitting and issuing subpoenas, they have kept it so quiet that we haven't heard a peep about it, which is unusual that we wouldn't have heard about it. You are probably familiar with the incredible financial work, excuse me, of a brilliant Wall Street fellow named Charles Ortel. Mr. Ortel supplied the FBI with a lot of these materials, which they accepted and have begun to act upon.
That's extraordinary.
It is.
It really is extraordinary.
It is extraordinary, and it's really been below the radar screen until we heard Donald Trump last night say, this is going to be something I'm talking about next week because it goes to her judgment as a public official.
Yes. Why did they do this in the first place? They knew that Hillary Clinton was going to be running for the presidency. Everybody knew that, and they still went out and did this kind of deal.
Yes.
It's extraordinary that they would do that.
Yes, it is extraordinary. And of course, the Ortel report has a lot of other deficiencies in there. Monies raised in the name of charities that weren't legitimate registered charities, money missing. You know, there's just so much of that stuff going on. It's almost too much for the FBI to get an arm around.
Not too much for you. You'll be right at it. I know you will. I know you will.
It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks,
well,
Judge.
It's the intersection of law enforcement and politics and the presidency all at once.
And money, too.
Yes.
All right, Judge, thanks a lot. We'll see you in the next hour.
Yes.
Or the 11 o'clock.